Hey, and welcome to Geopolitical Trends. So excited to be with you on this December 2nd. I got an exciting topic that the conversation over it is slowly emerging. I wanted to get ahead of it. The reason why I wanted to get ahead of it is because I've already mentioned this few weeks ago, since the conflict started between Israel and Hamas, that it will be just a matter of time before we start seeing forces of NATO being sort of in support of Israel in the conflict. And here we are. That doesn't mean that NATO is already there, but the conversation is starting there. So this is what I'm going to be providing you my insights about. Before I'll do all this, please make sure to type in where you are joining me from. I already see the fellow Canadians here. Alan Emsin of Ontario, Phil from Ottawa. Those are fellow Canadians here, my neighbor to the north. David Kamono from Oregon, good to see you. That's who else? Anyway, just type in where you are joining me from. What I'm gonna do, guys, this time I'm gonna save all my thanks for the channel new members and supporters, and for those who bought me coffee. Yes, there are many of you, and I'm gonna give a shout out to everybody towards the end. So please stay around, don't leave. So I want to also remind you about the possibility of doing a live stream tomorrow. I think I will. A major topic. A major topic. You don't want to miss that out. So if you get a chance, if your schedule permits. So here's the question, and those are key questions that we need to ask given the development. By the way, the ceasefire ended. Israel has already been targeting some other locations. I'm sure you're aware of this one, and that's what we said. Will ceasefire last? It's unlikely, and even if it lasts, it did not. Now Israel is asking for another truce for one day. Well, it doesn't work that way. You can be cherry picking or choosy about when you want a truce, when you don't want it. That just doesn't work that way. And this is where my big concern as an analyst, I start to think in terms of, I can just see the signs of NATO being not dragged, but rather providing support willingly. This is where the key. And that is going to now change the dynamics as so many moves forward. We don't know this yet. I'm just want to get ahead of it, as I said to you earlier, by thinking strategically as to what if. And because within all this, we got to ask the key questions. And the key questions are as follow. Does Israel have a roadmap for Gaza future within the conflict? Apparently doesn't seem to be. Second thing, if NATO decided to move forward, is this because NATO is seeking to be relevant in an era where everybody is saying NATO is irrelevant, they should disband? We also the fiasco in Ukraine, which, by the way, the Russian president just declared that the war ended in Ukraine. As a matter of fact, I did see another confirmation of that from a Western magazine by the name The Economist. They did mention that one as well. So the idea of is NATO seeking relevancy, which we all know NATO is a relic of the past. And third question, hypothetically, if this moves forward, how will the Arab world react to this? Well, we all know some in the Arab world are just talk. I'll start with Turkey. Even Saudi Arabia itself. They are Jordan. They're all about talks. No more, no less. So then the last question will be is, will someone, when I say someone, I'm referring to an entity, a country, a faction, whatever term you want to use, will someone come to Hamas help? And this, by the way, was a question or statement was put by one of our viewers by the name of Arena R. Good question. Really good question. So let me just give you a background of what this is all about, so you put it in perspective, because you need to understand the dynamics. This is a picture of, this is the current prime minister. This is the former prime minister on my right, Ehud Olmert. He is the one who sort of stated, and this is on record, and I will put the link for you on all that, stated on record that Israel must use, here is the word, the key word, must use NATO forces after Gaza war. That's to me troubling to begin with. Must use. Why? What is the problem with that? Can anybody tell me? I just want you to think outside the box. I want you to tell me what is the problem with that term. Israel must use NATO forces. Where do you see the problem with that? Just please type in that in the chat box as I go through this, and I'll check the answer for that. Well, he did lay out, this is the former prime minister, his so-called vision from for the post-war phase of in Gaza Strip. Of course, because Ehud Olmert is launching an attack on Benjamin Netanyahu. This is why I said there is already tensions inside the Israeli government. And I know some media doesn't like to report the truth. As a matter of fact, FYI, guys, one of the videos that I did about Israel, YouTube just demonetized it altogether. Why? I don't know. Because apparently they didn't like to hear what I'm saying about the truth. I care less. You go ahead, demonetize it. But the truth matters. We all know where things are in the West. Censorship is alive. Shame on you, YouTube. Really, shame on you. And you said you stand in for freedom of speech. Nonsense. So here is the thing. Inside the Israeli government, there is a war going on, a chaos beyond imagination. Of course, we are not going to hear about it. And this is why it's been described, and I put this in quote, gang of thugs inside. This is how the ministers inside the cabinet of Benjamin Netanyahu have been described. Tells you right there. Let me go back, see your answer, guys, about that, because it's a key question you need to understand as to why. First, let me remove this picture here. Here we go. And I want to say thank you to KL for your super sticker. Thank you very much, KL, for your continued support. It means a lot to me, and I want you to know how much I appreciate it. Let me see why you guys think the keyword with that particular sentence. And I wanted to get involved in many countries, okay? You are absolutely correct, TT, about your statements. I'll let you guys read it because I'm not going to say it here. Shame on YouTube. So, all right, let me see what you answer in this one here. This great. Okay, I'm going to move on, guys, because the answer is not there yet. So anyway, when Olmert said Israel must use NATO forces, well, how can he use NATO forces if it is not a member of NATO? Because you're all familiar with the Article 5. An attack on a member is an attack on the whole alliance. Well, Israel is not a member, which means what? That means it's not the Israel that's saying this, it's the US. Because when you think about NATO, who do you think? The US, basically. Oh, who else? We dictate the terms because we are the one providing over 70% of the budget of NATO, which means we have what we say, it's what goes. Germany and France and UK and Canada, they're useless. They are useless. And to me, it's very troubling when a former prime minister is saying we must use. That means the whole NATO is nothing but a puppet. Well, it's not NATO, it's the US. And that's part of where the problem is. So, and here is the thing. And by the way, Olmert, the former prime minister who stated the need for NATO to use NATO, has published this article in the Haaretz, which is a national newspaper in Israel, well known. So, and he stated, and I quote, published in Haaretz, that Netanyahu and his, and I put this in quote because that's his word, is a bloody, thirsty government, do not have an answer to the question posed by the Israeli allies about what comes next after the war. Very, very interesting, because it's logical arguments. What is the plan? What is the plan? But at the same time, you need to understand why Olmert is saying what's saying. Because they're all running after the premiership. They want that Netanyahu out so they can. It's all about power. It's all about corruption. That's all it is. Do they care for the Jewish people? No. It's no different than what we have in our country. Does the president, our incompetent president, care about the American people? No. That's the problem. So let me go back to the first question that I asked. If you remember, the first question was, does Israel have a roadmap for Gaza future? In other words, is there a plan after all this bombardments and so forth? Well, apparently, and to me again, I am just thinking out loud here. The strategy for Israel, which even though some circles inside the cabinet of prime ministers saying, "Oh, it's a secret," and all. No, it is not a secret, and it's not shrouded in mystery. It's because there is no strategy to begin with. You know, what are the objectives of the war have been achieved? No. And even closest allies of the U.S. are always wondering about where this is going. No strategy whatsoever. So you think about it in terms of the answer of the Israeli forces on the attack by the resistant movement, Hamas, that is, and how it has sort of exacerbated, aggravated the sort of, what's the word I'm looking for, uncertainty inside Gaza. You know, and this is why if you don't have a strategy, how can you be talking about the future? Because no one knows, including the prime minister's administration, Netanyahu, that is. So this is why you having the former prime minister now attacking. It's all about tactics, but tactics that can spell danger if you are to pull in NATO into all this. NATO, of course, would love to be there because it's irrelevant. So anytime there is a conflict, it demonstrates that, saying, see, this is why we exist. I mean, I remember when I was in Afghanistan, I was like, what the heck is NATO doing here? It was like ridiculous. You know, here it is, a sort of a defense alliance, as it was supposed to be against the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union is gone. And this is nothing new. You all know this. So what is NATO doing? You know, some might disagree with the former president here in the U.S., Trump, when he said, you know, maybe NATO needs to be dissolved. You know, you kind of see the rationale of something like this. I mean, I don't agree with Trump about Trump is not equipped to handle a foreign policy, or even for the presidency for that matter. Being loud doesn't give you sort of the right to claim yourself as a leader, because you have to have an in-depth, you have to acquire depth when it comes down to geopolitics and international affairs to understand how the dynamics are moving forward. And this is where the problem that I believe that exists right now with this conflict, the conflict Israel and Hamas, is that the idea that Israel thinking about destroying Hamas, eradicating it from existence, it's nothing but hypes. It ain't gonna happen. As one who understands the culture and been there and understand how those kind of factions work, it's wishful thinking. NATO or not NATO ain't gonna make any difference whatsoever. As a matter of fact, if ever NATO gets in, it's gonna only complicate matters, which will now broaden the conflict. Do you think Russia's gonna stand on the sideline? Do you think China? How about the Arab world? Even though they just talk, you might see something. As a matter of fact, Qatar, country of Qatar, declared that if these atrocities do not stop, they will arm Hamas. That is again why I ask that question. Who will be next arming the group? Because here is the reality. How can you destroy an entity that has been part of the social fabric of the Palestine society and so forth? You know, for the last at least as one who's been following on the Middle East for the last 30 years or so, at least I can go as far as the last 10, 16, 20 years. The group of Hamas has been an integral part of the Gaza public management and so forth. What Israel wanted to do is to create that wedge between what it's in the West Bank and what's in Gaza. Because I bet you this, if there were elections today, by the way, most Palestinians, not all, most of them do not see eye to eye with Mahmoud Abbas, the leader of the PLO right now, the Palestinian Liberation, the Palestinian leader. You know, he's too weak. And he's been like a puppet. The Israelis played him a couple times. I was never sort of, the moment he took over, I said, this guy ain't going to make a difference. Nothing against Mahmoud Abbas, but I tell you to your face. Yeah, it's too weak. So, but what the people understood, this is the same setting as it is in Lebanon with Hezbollah. Why Lebanese people do understand the value of Hezbollah instead of the government. Well, heck, Hezbollah is far stronger than the army of the government. Same arguments can be made. So, now, there are certain considerations we have to think about the future moving forward. First of all, Israel will not be able to control the 2 million Palestinians in Gaza. That's one. And even with the thinking of how this is going to be, this is with the assumption that NATO gets in, which will be a nightmare. Because we look at it like in Ukraine. What did NATO do? Nothing except aggravating and pushing Ukrainians to the forefront. I remember the moment Russian forces went in, I said, you're going to be noticing a fight to the last Ukrainian. And that's exactly what is happening. I see the same scenario here. But remember, guys, that does not mean that NATO is there. It's not. But the fact that the wording of it has been mentioned, that suggests to me the indication of what lies ahead. And again, if I am to see a statement like that when a former official or a current, whatever, use the term, we must use NATO, that spells trouble. It spells trouble. And again, the idea of NATO getting involved, it's going to widen the conflict. Because how do you think, and question to you, how do you think Iran's going to react? Or even to a degree Saudi Arabia, which I will be talking about that tomorrow. So guys, don't miss that one tomorrow, because I happen to do the research on both countries. I wrote books on both of them, so I kind of understand the ins and outs of how their political strategies work moving forward. But this is different. How do you think they're going to react? No. Then you got the big dilemma, and dilemma is Turkey. Well, Turkey is a NATO member, but it's also in support of Palestine. What will Turkey do? Turkey tends to talk a lot. We all know this. It's nothing secret, whatever. We all know Erdogan talks too much. Now, Erdogan would have deployed the troops against Cyprus, but why didn't he do it against Israel? Talk is cheap, as they say, right? So the idea of Erdogan also has to have his own calculations for the upcoming elections. I came across an article here for you guys, and I'm going to share it with you just to show you something here. Let me share it with you. Mohammed Abdullahi, Israel not in NATO. You're absolutely correct. So, let me share this screen with you here, guys, so you can see. Yeah, because this is the problem of Erdogan presents a roadmap for ending the conflict and post-Gaza war initiative. So what happened to, well, we're gonna have to support the Palestinians, or we're gonna have to sanction Israel, or we're gonna have to, talk is cheap. And again, if this case, if Turkey had a problem with Cyprus, they would have sent troops over there. I know this for a fact. And this is why it's going to be the question of how would these countries react once, and this is the big assumption, guys, if NATO gets in. And again, I just want to highlight this to you. I wanted to get ahead of it because I did see the signs. Conversations usually, like I said yesterday, words tends to turn into policy. This is where the challenge that I see. So the conditions, as I mentioned, first of all, that Israel won't be able to control the 2 million, okay? And that's one. The second thing is that under no circumstances, they will be able to disarm factions inside Palestine, because there's more than one. Hamas is just one group. You have others rather. Then comes our Secretary of State, the amateur Mr. Blinken. And for him, in an effort to sort of allay the fears, like to reduce the fears of the Palestinians and even the U.S. allies in the Middle East, the Arab countries, that is. So what he's talking about outlining some of Biden administration's parameters for post-war order in Gaza. It's laughable. It's laughable. How can you trust what the American government is saying? I mean, the whole world knows how the U.S. cannot and never was an honest broker. Why do you think the rest of the world reacted to Mr. Wang Yi, the Chinese foreign minister, during his speech when he wrapped up the Chinese presidency for the UN Security Council, suggesting that China can play a role into finding a permanent solution to the Arab-Israeli conflict? Of course, we won't want that, because that will already put a nail on the coffin for our credibility, which is already shattered. So what Mr. Blinken is saying, and I'm going to quote here because those are his words. He said, and I quote, "There can be no reoccupation. I can't talk, There can be no forced displacement of Palestinians from the Strip, or the reduction of the Gaza territory, or any attempt to blockade it. And instead, Gaza and the West Bank must be reunited under the Palestinian Authority." But that's not what the Palestinian wants, because they don't care for Mahmoud Abbas. So who are you, Mr. Secretary, to come and dictate the terms to a country that has to choose its own path? And this is what Blinken suggested at the UN, United Nations, to the coalition of the Arab states. And what he suggested is that, well, the Arab states can temporarily administer Gaza. No, you let it to their people, they'll decide. And your solution to it is two-state solutions, straightforward, to go back to the 1967 borders. But the US cannot. It's not in the US government's DNA to be an honest broker. Straightforward. And I don't care what they think, because it's the truth. Because truth matters. Now you see why they went ahead and demonetized my last video about Israel. It shows you, guys. It shows you. When you start to see this kind of tactics, you know you're right. So you are in the right channel, by the way. That's the way I see it. So, and this is why it was the argument that let me show you here, because I need to share this with you guys, because I want you to see, and I will post all these links for you at the description. I don't do it till I'm done with this stuff here. Oh, the wrong one. All right, here is the screen, and I want you to see. This is when he landed in the Middle East. He, meaning Blinken, landed in the Middle East to discuss with the Arab states how they intend to move forward. That's him right there at the airport, and spoke before leaving Dubai for Washington, because they were in Dubai about the climate hoax and all that stuff. And this is what Secretary is saying, and we all know it's nothing but a joke. He was never qualified for the position to begin with, and I don't shy away, by the way, saying it, because it's the truth. Now there is another issue loom large, and there is this issue is where I want you to put the dots together, because this, as an analyst, you have to see where the dots are, and you align them according to where the strategy might be headed. So to tie all this to why I decided to even talk about NATO, not because of what Olmert said, no, it's because of what the US did a few weeks ago. What are we talking about here? We're talking about the surge of US troops to Israel. Now, the White House said, oh, there are no troops. What's his name? John Kirby, which is another liar anyway. John Kirby, his flip-floppers. We all know it. The whole administration. And by the way, it's not just the Democrats. It's the Republicans as well. So the whole American system is corrupted to its core. And that's, to me, the signs of the beginning of the end. The end of America is coming, or the Western order for that matter. So John Kirby said, oh, there are no troops in the Middle East or sent to Israel, which is a lie, because there are, even in Western media, articles that came out from, for example, The Guardian, okay, that disclosed that the US has deployed troops in the Middle East, and he can't avoid the commitment trap. Okay, and I'm gonna share this with you guys because, and here, let me share it right now, because I need you to see. Facts matters, truth matters, and when you see it with your own eyes, you'll say, I did share it with you guys because I want you to see. Now, this one here, the US deployed troops in the Middle East. Of course, they're not gonna say where. Well, we all know they want to. They were about 2,000 deployed. 901 to Israel. Okay, the two or 3-star general Marine general went to Israel to consult and give us advice to the Israeli Defense Force. And yet Kirby had the audacity to come and say, oh, there are no troops, lying to your face. That's, to me, like an insult to the American people, or the world for that matter, thinking that people cannot think. It's about all the thinking, the assumption that people cannot sort of think rationally. And this is why it's important when you guys watch YouTube videos, because I've seen some nonsense. I'll tell you this, regarding, like, for example, Arab countries are imposing sanctions. There were no sanctions. So if those individuals who are watching videos, please refrain from just sensationalizing, because it's not right. You report the facts, not sensationalism. You have to do the right thing. If it's not right, don't say it. Or if it's not the truth, don't say it. And if it's not right, don't do it. That's actually what Marcus Aurelius said back then. So my point in all this, the idea that Blinken talking about the roadmap and all that, but this is where I want you to put the dots between the U.S. deployment of troops and the call of the former Prime Minister of Israel for, we need to use NATO. You see the link? That is what it is. Where the problem, same thing like what happened in Ukraine, is the day after, the consequences. Europeans, the EU is so weak to even to even move an inch. The question with the EU is with the rise of the far right that we are witnessing now in some countries. The latest being Netherlands. Furthers, his name is Furthers. I'm assuming I'm pronouncing it correctly. Won the elections. It all depends on the policies. I can't reach a conclusion yet till I start seeing the conclusion, the policies, the implementation of the policies to that. Yeah. Now, and this is to think in terms that what the US is doing is a full support for Israel, no matter what. That's, of course, what shattered our credibility beyond, because we have turned our back on what's right. We knew that by giving the green light to Israel to do whatever, crimes will end up against humanity, will end up being conducted, genocide will end up being conducted, and so forth, which is not right. And again, you think in the terms of the lasting solutions is the two-state solutions. And the big question that now we need to ask is the idea of the way I look at it. I mean, if NATO, we go with the assumption, if NATO is there, how do you think Hezbollah is going to react? How do you think the Houthi is going to react? How do you think the other factions inside the Middle East? What will Iran do now that they shut down an Israeli missile in Syria? Do you think they're going to hesitate? I don't think so. But at least for Iran is following through. There are those who talk, and I intend to address this tomorrow in more depth, because that's a part of my academic research that I acquired over the years regarding how the political structures in both countries operate. For Turkey, I won't count too much on Turkey. This is where I see the challenge for that. Now, there are those who are thinking about, well, how this is going to move forward with Gaza after the reconstructions and so forth, because they start already talking about the reconstruction. That's usually where it tells you that we cannot sustain this forever, because losing the war is becoming evident. Anytime, whether the US or Israel in this case, we'll talk about the post-war reconstructions and so forth, we don't know. It's because they want to avoid losing, which they already did anyway. Maybe that's why they demonetized my video, because I said that. So, and this is exactly what happened. If you use history as your guide, this is what happened exactly in 2006. Following the UN Security Council Resolution 1701. It was all about this was about basically Second Lebanon War. It was all about the conversation of the reconstruction after. Why? Because Hezbollah defeated the Israelis there. And this is, again, well, I question the judgments of this former Prime Minister Olmert, who goes on to explain his plan that Israel should propose, and I put this in quote, diplomatic horizon, whatever that means, to end the war in Gaza. You know, you read between the lines, adding, and he added, and I quote, "We must announce immediately after the end of the military campaign that Israel will begin talks with the Palestinian Authority on a solution based on two states for two people." End of quote. I mean, would you trust that? I've heard the same statements way back. I was aware of the talks that took place in Oslo Accord. I had a conversation directly with the former U.S. ambassador to the Arab-Israeli conflict. It was Dennis Ross at the time. And he and I, we met in a private event, and I had a conversation with him offline. You know, it's the same argument. We're going to hear the same. Why would you want to negotiate now? It's because they're realizing the tide are turning in the Middle East, especially now we having both Saudi Arabia and Iran are talking about military cooperation. That is the key. So the statements as to United Arab Emirates, Egypt, Jordan, I mean, you're not going to ignore the Egyptian military, with all their over 600 tanks, I think, some 3 major divisions and so forth. My former unit in the military used to rotate in Egypt. So back then, I never been there. So Jordan, United Arab Emirates, and even Bahrain, which they do have, by the way, diplomatic ties with Israel. But the Saudis stopped short, and I don't think they're going to move forward. But the Saudis also could be just doing a lip service to the Arab world. We want to show how much we support the Palestinians, when in reality we don't care. Because, like I always say, watch what a man does, not what he says. Everybody can talk. Everybody can talk. And this is where that challenge that I foresee moving forward, with the assumption that if this NATO thing expands over there, because NATO is in chaos. NATO is as divided as it can ever be, because it's realizing that there is no mission for NATO, is irrelevant. So what you end up doing, you have to create conflicts to justify its existence. That's the bottom line to it. And if it was just limited to Europe, what for? Soviet Union ceased to exist way back. So what is the issue? And this is why now they're realizing, it might make more sense to move it to the Middle East, because conflicts in the Middle East tends to take a little bit longer. SK Wong, thank you so much for your super sticker. Truly appreciate it, man. Thank you very much. This is where I see the challenge for them. My big concern is the widening of the conflict, because, again, the Middle East of today is not the Middle East of 20 years ago. Things have changed. You're absolutely correct, Alex. You're absolutely correct. Europe has dug its own grave. Yeah, its own, through its failed policies. And even now, you ask them, I mean, you look at what does a foreign minister of G7, did they even took a stand on saying, no, we're going to have to address it direct? No, it was none of that. It's all about window dressing, as we say. The political manipulation. I got to use certain terminology that resonate and sound right, but it has no meaning. That's why we call it bravado. Nothing. So you're absolutely correct. So where they're going to move forward is only will complicate the matters. I am certain that Olmert said this to initiate his desire to again become the next prime minister. It's all about power. Even Olmert himself was involved in corruption. There was an investigation about him. The corruption, it runs deep, not just in our country. It's But for the big question we need to ask is, what will the reaction be of the regional powers in the Middle East? NATO coming in. U.S. already sent troops. So no need to lie. Mr. Kirby, if you are watching this, no need to lie. Take stand, man. You're former military. You stand for honor. You do the right thing without nobody watching. What happened? Shame. I understand about politics. I was in Washington, D.C. So I left. Couldn't. You can't. In a right mind, you can't. Because you have to live with that. Down the road, you have to live with that. I'd rather look at you face to face and tell you exactly how it is. Now, how you want to hear it. Because that's, to me, the important aspects of it. And I'm referring also here to Erdogan. Take stand. Be a man. Be a NATO member, that's fine, but be a man. And it's sad to see what happened to the real man, as we used to say. What happened? It's a shame. But one thing I want you to get out of this, guys, because I want to keep this one to the point here. I want you to get one thing. And remember, this is just thinking ahead. NATO is not there. But if, what is going to do to the conflict? Israel is going back and forth. It was ceasefire was ended. Israel bombed whatever it bombed. Now they're asking for another day for truce, which doesn't make sense. If NATO is get pulled, which basically NATO is the US, the US is already sort of, we are part of the conflict. We can wash our hands of it, no matter what the administration says, And of course, because the concern for the Biden administration is the upcoming elections. But again, it won't matter because the system is corrupted. Do you think the Republicans are going to do better? No. Just listen to what the Speaker of the House is talking. He's talking like he is speaking in the Knesset, not in the U.S. House of Representatives. I don't know how they elected a guy like that, but it was easy to elect somebody like that because you can move him any direction you want. The power be behind the scenes. And this is what I want you to get out of this, to understand the big picture. So tomorrow, when I talk about the Saudis and Iranians, I'll put it in perspective for you. And join me tomorrow if you have time, if your schedule allows. And it will be a fascinating topic, as I'm very, very familiar with it. Like I said, I wrote a books about it. I've been there. I worked there. I've been closer to Iran. Never been inside Iran. And so I'm very familiar with it. So, and I will be providing you my own analysis that I disclosed in my books, both of them, in addition to the 140 articles that I wrote, which half of them were about the Middle East. So, all right, guys, let me see a question here. But before I do this, I like to go and give a shout out to channel supporters and members. So I'm going to give a shout out to Brad Arnold. Thank you for becoming a channel supporter. Truly appreciate it. Then I want to give another shout out to a new channel member by the name. I like this screen name. Do all things with love. I couldn't agree with you more, man. Couldn't agree with you more. Life is too short. We're just passing through. So thank you very much for becoming a channel supporter. And for buying me coffee, yes, they are individual. One of them bought me 10 cups of coffee. I'm going to be caffeinated to the max, which will be good because that's when I do the research and search the data and so forth to bring you the good information you need to know. So I'm going to start with Harry Lukel, who is, by the way, a channel member. So thank you very much, Harry. The next person is, it says someone, but I'm going to only use the first part, Smaron C, because if there is no name, I don't like to disclose anything else. Maria Rancher, thank you so much. Ash, thank you so much for your buy me coffee. I truly appreciate it. Cody Leonard, thank you so much. VA Van, thank you very much for your support for the channel. Someone under the engineers, I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you so much for buying me 10 cups of coffee. Truly appreciate it. And the last person I want to give thanks to is Ellen HK. Thank you so much for your support. Truly appreciate it. And to all of you guys, for those who wants to support the channel here, you can where is my I don't know. I had the link here for you guys if you want to buy me coffee. I'll post it for you guys. It was somewhere here, but I don't know what it is. Oh, right here, I think. Yeah, right here, guys. So if you feel like supporting the channel, those are the link, and I will post them for you in the description, and I truly appreciate it. I want to share one more thing with you. This is what I was working on last night. Yeah, decorating the tree, Christmas tree. Behind it is the garden where I grew my cabbage, broccoli, and cauliflower. So Usually I'll talk about that one in the health channel, which I will be uploading some videos there as far as some health tips for you guys. So anyway, let me take a question or two from you guys before I sign off and go work on a few other things. And I truly appreciate you being here. Please hit that like button. I will really appreciate it. And thank you all for your comments. There are some wonderful comments. And oh, here is Alan. Yeah, Alan saying, thank you so much for your support, man. I truly appreciate it. Truly appreciate it on both channels. I can't thank you enough to all of you. So let me see if there is a question. Question from Ahmed Ismail. What has Egypt been up to militarily and politically? There is a lot of movements from mukhabarat, which means the Arabic word for intelligence service. Army moves to Sinai. Do you think Sisi will hold Sisi, the president of Egypt, who, by the way, came to power through a coup? Because you know why? We okayed it. We and the Saudis agreed to it. Shows you right there. Hold the move from public stance moving forward. Yeah, because Sisi made it clear that he doesn't want the Palestinian refugees. Why? Because Israelis were pushing them south. Well, south towards the Sinai. They don't want to go up north, which is not going to work because Egypt made it clear. Egypt is in possession to move its army, and as a matter of fact, they moved some of heavy armored divisions to the Sinai. To the Sinai, yeah. Where will they engage the Israelis? No, ain't gonna go that far. The reason being because we give them the 2.4 or 2.2 billion dollar a year for that reason. That's how we bought them out, to maintain peace with Israel. And by the way, that money doesn't go to the Egyptian people. It goes to their military complex. That's the military that controls the economy, and majority of them have their accounts privately in Switzerland. And we were aware of some. Even Hosni Mubarak, when he died, it was about over $20 billion of money in one of his accounts in Switzerland. It's all corruption. So, and I intend to write a book about Egypt, by the way, down the road. So that is the answer, is because Mukhabarat or the intelligence services, they're just playing both sides to keep the population calm and so forth. Because Sisi will think in terms of his own survival, because he came to power through coup. You can see the meaning of something like this. Question, Afif Khan, even though this is not related to this conversation here, but is the complete collapse of the dollar coming soon? Yeah, but not soon enough. We're not talking about next year, next 2, or next 3. No, it'll take time, because the other entities who are emerging have to build their own financial infrastructure. Otherwise, how BRICS will conduct global transactions if it doesn't have the equivalency of SWIFT system? That's what I meant. A little long breaks. Well, you all know the tensions inside with India. It's going to take time. That's how long it's going to take for that. Oh, I want to say thank you to 179 Big. Yeah, thank you very much for your super sticker. Truly appreciate it. So, question from Boycott. I might not be able to read that term because I think that's the reason why YouTube demonetized one of my video, but you all can read that question. Just to answer it is, yeah, it's because the new speaker. And the new speaker, it's clear who appointed him there, who forced members of Congress to vote for him. It's clear. So, and he doesn't shy away. That was the first agenda when he took over. The moment he hit the gavel on the table, first has to do with the support for Israel. So it tells you right there where the story is. And again, and I don't like to beat the dead horse here. The system is corrupted. Boycott, you wrote very nice home. Thank you very much. Dr. O, be careful. Well, I don't know. I'm scared of government, whatever. There's one life to be lived, and I'm going to live it according to my term. What's the worst going to happen? I do have some stuff in my home here to defend myself. You know what I mean, right? So, but I'm not going to say the government has much bigger things to deal with than worrying about me. But at the same time, when you see what the you just don't shame, we're saying we stand for freedom of speech. Well, where is it? Because truth is not everybody's going to like it, but you can't be cherry picking about truth. You either saying the truth or not. There is not in between, and this is where I see that problem is. Uh, I don't know. I came to realize this, to me, guys. This is a responsibility. I am not here to just sit and chat with you. You can use your time for something else. Because if I am not to share something of value, something of importance, something you can learn from, then what am I doing here? Wasting your time? It's not right of me to do so. Just because I want to have, whatever numbers for subscriber. No, it's not the right reasons. You have to do things for the right reasons. If it ain't right, don't do it. That's, to me, the argument. So, okay, question from Al. What do you think about the news of a joint military exercise between Iran, China, and Russia? I'm not surprised at that because Russia has conducted the joint military with China, with China, yes, but also with Iran. Yeah, pardon me. If they conducted this at this time, that's again confirm my thinking about NATO. They want to send the signal. And this is what I'm saying. As an analyst, I have to think in terms of what if, the big scenario. Because if NATO gets in, the conflicts will widen. Whether NATO wants it or not, it's beside the point. It will be naturally is going to, because NATO, what do you think NATO comes to do good? No. NATO is a security threat to, it's a threat to global security. Straightforward. So Russia, Iran, and China conducting joint military, it's a message. That's basically what it is. Let me see here. Mohammed S. Question: what is the real solution to? What the real solution is? Excuse me. A permanent ceasefire, sit down negotiating tables, establish two-state solutions. End of story. There is no ifs and buts. You're going to have to, of course, I'm not saying this is going to happen over 24 hours. Those negotiations could take months, but at least do it honestly and have an honest broker, not the US. I will be one voting for let China do it, because China has no ties. Sort of, when I say ties, I am referring to the same alignment between the US and Israel. China doesn't have that within. What China has, it's a win-win as far as economics with the regional powers or regional players like Iran, like Turkey, like Saudi Arabia. So why not? Let China do it. An honest broker. They succeeded. They proved they could do it with Iran and Saudi Arabia, sort of brokering that deal between the two. Let them do it. But we're not. We're going to undermine it one way or another. So that's the way, instead of this tit for tat, because now what you're seeing is the dust will settle. Give it some time and all over again. This cycle has been going on for a while. That's, to me, the way I see it. This one here, boycott, I am not gonna do this. You know why? Because of the algorithm in YouTube. And I am in the process, guys, of setting up Rumble. I will be taking some of the conversation to the other side. Now that we can talk, and I will be able to talk openly. So, indeed, Anwar Sadat was good because he signed the peace treaty with Israel. And I remember, because I was watching that when the parade and the vehicle stopped, they took the rifle and just sort of spray everybody on that stage, including Anwar Sadat. So. All right, one more question here, and that's about it. Let me see here if there is one. Sometimes it takes a while for the question to show up. Just to remind you guys, tomorrow, remember to join me for the conversation uh, about the conversation regarding Saudis and Iran together as to what they plan to do. Okay, last question here, Bevel. Well, what does Dr. O think about one versus two state solutions? Well, it won't be one state. That's common sense. It won't be one state. It will be two states, and it will have to be two states. Yeah, because remember, we cannot just look at one side, the Palestinians. Israelis, the Jewish people, they have the right to exist as well. We can't be blinded by that's to me the logic. As to the land and all that, you work those stuff out. As far as you go back to 1967, for example, which to me makes perfect sense. If you know the history, 1967 will be. And this is why something I'm going to share with you. I don't want to be ahead of myself right now for tomorrow. Why is it important for you to understand this military cooperation between Iran and Saudi Arabia? How it relates to this 1967 thing. So now it will be two-state solution, not one. So, all right, guys, I do hope you find this video. Oh, Tony, there you are. Yeah, Tony, thank you for being here, man. For being Ukraine. Yes, you're absolutely correct, Tony. You're absolutely correct. It's not a secret that without the U.S., Israel won't even move an inch. That's the reality of it. So, okay, guys, I hope you find this video informative, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Please remember to hit the like button and subscribe if you have not done so, and I shall see you tomorrow. As always, remember, geopolitics impact your daily life in more ways than one. Till next time, guys. Bye-bye.